I tossed and turned all night on Thursday, Friday of this week. I do that a lot these days since my heart event. But on this particular evening, I had viewed the opening of the Senate hearings on the June 6 riot at the Capitol last year. I found hope a difficult, elusive state of mind to capture my attention afterward as I prepared for this delivery. It didn't help at all that I awoke at 3 a.m. on Friday to a TV minister expounding on the topic, what else? Hope. I don't remember much, but I recall that he was quoting Paul, rarely a good sign, and he was referencing the future. Some folks dwell on the past and find despair, he said, while others, Christians of course, focus on God's future and live in hope. The difficulty for me in this message is that we are speaking two different languages. I know this because I learned that language as a young person. I studied it in Baptist church and college and seminary. It is the language of fundamentalism. And hope in this language does not mean what it means to most of us. Let me try to explain my point of view. Although we welcome and embrace diversity, my guess, and this is not a judgment, it's a presumption. My guess is that one would be hard-pressed to find a Unitarian Universalist who believes in heaven. Certainly not the traditional Christian understanding of a skybound destiny awaiting believers, the antithesis of hell and torment, the place where Jesus perches at the right hand of God, abode of angels, streets of gold, a mansion with many rooms, a land flowing with milk and honey. Scott Russell Sanders, in his personal journal, Hunting for Hope, says, when all hope is projected beyond death into an afterlife, it becomes a form of despair. Sanders wrote that such a fixation on the afterlife has provoked many intellectuals to dismiss all religious hope as nothing more than snake oil for the afflicted. And so, he said, Voltaire described Christian hope as despising all things here below in expectation of unknown future joys. Karl Marx called religion what? Poison. The opiate of the people. Hope is the worst of evils, Nietzsche said, for it prolongs the torment of man. Dwelling on this topic in the past few weeks and months and even years, as a person might be inclined to do when preaching a sermon, or dealing with a serious medical ailment, or living as a liberal in this illiberal age, has not been easy for us. I wonder what I might say about hope when I sometimes find so little in my own life. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. And so I ask myself, where do I turn when I need hope? One place, of course, is the source of the reading from Wendell Berry presented by Kevin this morning. I come into the peace of wild things. Nature calls. I sit and watch the bluebird family living in the birdhouse I erected from them just outside my door. I listen to my fountain you saw in the meditation video. I go out to the wild reserve and visit my exotic animal friends. I also turn to poetry and readings, the ideas of others. It has been my good fortune in life to marry twice. Both times my partners had children, and so I became a stepdad, or as I was known to some of them, Daddy Wolf. I was always in the market for a good book on parenting. So when I came across Scott Sanders' book, Hunting for Hope, A Father's Journeys, I could relate immediately. Sanders carries his teenage son on a hiking trip. He's trying to reconnect with him, to mend a recent animosity in their relationship. So they go hiking high in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. As the banter and fun devolves into yet another argument, Scott says to his son Jesse, I want to know, what is it about me that grates on you? I learned from my own experience that can be a dangerous question. Jesse replies, you're just so out of touch. You hate everything that's fun. You hate television and movies and video games. You hate my music. You hate advertising. You hate billboards and lotteries and developers and logging companies and big corporations. You hate snowmobiles and jet skis. You hate malls and fashions and cars. You say fast food's poisoning our bodies and TV's poisoning our minds. You think business is a conspiracy to rape the earth. At this point in the book, I'm looking right in the mirror. Jesse continues, your view of things is totally dark. It bums me out. You make me feel the planet's dying and people are to blame and nothing can be done about it. There's no room for hope. And now I'm reading and I'm on the verge of tears. Maybe you can get by without hope, says Jesse, but I can't. I've got a lot of living still to do. I have to believe there's a way we can get out of this mess. Otherwise, what's the point? Why study? Why work? Why do anything if it's all going to hell? Coming up with an answer, Scott Sanders said, is the hardest job I ever attempted. The first condition of hope, he says, is to believe you will have a future. The second is to believe there will be a decent world in which to live it. He relates a story about a woman from Chicago who told him she was astonished to have reached the age of 30. She started doing drugs at 10, joined a gang at 12, killed a rival, and went off to prison at 15, and never expected to reach 18. What preserved her, she said, was a rehabilitation program that took her and others on day trips into the Indiana dunes and on week-long canoe trips into Minnesota. In those wild places, she said, she felt safe for the first time. Having seen parts of the earth that endure, she said, I came to believe that I myself might endure. At the age of 30, this woman was leading groups of juvenile offenders on wilderness journeys. In order to live in hope, Scott said, we needn't believe that everything will turn out well. We need only believe that we are on the right path. Leave it to a person who has so much to be grateful for to bring me to my senses. While I was minister at Buckman Bridge, I had the privilege of conducting a memorial service for a woman who died at 108. When Nina was just a youngster, she wrote, "I'll tell you what it's like to be 80 years old. It's like climbing a mountain. You reach the summit and see the valley below, and another summit higher, 80, and wonder if you have the strength to climb. Then you sit down and meditate and wonder if it would be worth the effort. Life is a game of hoping, wishing, and wondering." Apparently, Nina found it worth the effort. There is another source I reach for when I want to dwell on hope. I turn to a fellow UU minister who for a decade wrestled with death and stared in the face of terminal prostate cancer. He not only shared the laughter and bared his pain, he wrote a song and book of poetry about it. I am so taken by Rick Maston, who wrote the song, and his book, Going Out Dancing, that I ordered 10 copies of it. You can pick one up for only $6. I thought maybe it would be a book discussion in our future. I thought instead of rambling on with my own musings, you might like to hear a bit from Rick on the topic of hope. Here is what he had to say about eternal life in his poem, The Alternative. Imagine that you came here today to see the philosopher, theologian that you admire the most, the he or she who has driven a line of words, a thought into your life, an idea like a pin into a hinge, and you moved on it. Arriving early to assure yourself a good seat, you find tacked to the door a note stating that it was true your idol and hero would be here, but if you came inside, you would have to remain till the end of the program, which would last forever. Every one of you, I believe, would turn away at the door, so don't tell me you want to live forever. Death loses its sting only after you consider the alternative. We opened our service with the music of John Prine. Rick responded with his poem, Turnabout. Hello in there. In my prime, John Prine sang it. Bette Midler made it a hit. The song reminding us there was a person residing in the bag of bones and sagging skin. I was out there then, but now, years later, I find myself in here, peering out of watery, pale blue windows. And I can tell you that if I overlook the aches and pains, the illnesses and infirmities, if I ignore the furrowed topography on the backs of my hands and steer clear of all reflecting surfaces, I'm in my early 30s. Science informs us that around 33 is the last time body, mind, and spirit are all in ascendance. At that age, the body begins its slow, lifelong descent. Wits can remain sharp and intense, perhaps for more than a century. And who can predict how high the spirit can fly? So know that this rumpled suit once fit, the fly always carefully zipped. Know that behind these telltale elder signs, there is a strapping young fellow with a full head of hair, responding to your smile. Hello out there. I think it must be true of every age, this barricade between the generations. We often think our situation is unique. The world has never been so troubled, problems quite so insurmountable, changes so stark. I used to think how odd it must have been for my great-grandmother, Granny Ford, who grew up before cars or planes or television. I watched my grandmother Hartsfield wash her laundry on the front porch with this very paddle. As a child, I used it for a baseball bat to hit a rubber ball. I sometimes feel like Rick and his vanishing species. I was born on a planet almost 77 light years from here. An idyllic world where children grew up without the threat of nuclear holocaust or global warming, without instant messaging systems or black revolutions, gay revolutions, drug revolutions, without women's liberation, or even the choice of taking or not taking the pill. True, the seed of all this was there, but it had nothing to do with my formative years. And now I find myself in this harsh place, a kind of space traveler, having close encounters with my own children. Like creatures from different star systems, we stare at each other across the void. Even our words have different stems. We are aliens in each other's midst. But damn it, I am the one saddled with the memory of that other place. Part of a colony stranded on planet Earth at the beginning of the 21st century, with no way to go back and no time to go on. Like a moon eclipsed, my kind will soon be gone. And in light of the headlines today, the sooner the better. Rick also wrote about a young man struggling for hope. A 19-year-old boy who, unlike Scott Sanders' son, Jesse, lost his war to suicide. He reflected on it in Crying for Chris. Here is the end of that poem. At times, we look back on our accomplishments, and they seem meaningless. And I must say, I have looked upon the books and CDs I have made and sold spiritual experiences you can purchase and play in the privacy of your living room as just so much bullshit. And then your note describing the dark night you spent reading and listening to my words. A note ending with your simple thanks. And I am reminded of a wise old man who once rapped me with his cane and said, "Do not say bullshit to be profane. It is used to help things live and grow." And so I come to the end of my sermon on hope. I don't know if you have any more hope than you did when you came in, but I think that it's healthy for us to come together and reflect on important things from time to time. Rick, of course, had something to say on that as well. So I close with a poem he called Free Choice. As I pass along, I call the shots. I choose the song. Free choice, you say? Well, here I choose to say you're wrong. For everything I do rests on something that I did, or more precisely on something done to me. At my birth, it was as if the new computer was delivered to be programmed, jammed with bits of information, all of which I use, none of which I choose. Of course, I can go and freely choose a thing, but can I say I chose the reasons that prompted me to choose it? The reels spin, the data fed in, and I am helplessly committed. I shall change, it's true, but only after I have processed something new. And is this where I must leave it? Me, the center of the universe, a mere machine, recording and reacting to nothing more than what I've been fed? No. For you and I may chance to meet, and having met, become a part of one another. If I alone cannot change, I'm changed by my sister and my brother. And in this larger way, I change myself. For aren't we all each other?